Okay, so could I get a motion to go back into open session, please? Sarah moves, Monica seconds, all in favor? Okay. So we have up on our agenda a presentation from the Sustainability Committee. I wasn't sure whether they would be on right away. So what we're going to do is go through our agenda. I think when Kathy or whomever Linda has set up to give us a report when they join, we'll stop wherever we are and let those guys speak. So we'll put that on hold and we will come back to that shortly. So first Selectmen report, just briefly, a number of folks had reached out thinking that maybe the Board of Selectmen would be voting on some blight foreclosures today. So we had some time in executive session to discuss some important parameters for making those decisions, which we did today with our attorneys, and we will be voting on foreclosures on blight properties in January. So more to come on all that. I'm going to interrupt my comments here. I see Kathy Finnegan has joined, and just out of respect for her time, she's joined us to talk about the Advisory Committee on Sustainability. So we will let her kind of come into the meeting. Kathy, can you hear us? I see Kathy Finnegan, but I'm not hearing her. Let's see if she picks up and can join in. Kathy, are you there?
I'm trying to get in.
There you go.
My video was telling me choose. Okay.
Well, we can hear your voice, so that's good.
Okay. I was going to try to share my screen, but not sure what's
Kathy,
going
I'll
on
give you
there.
the ability to share your screen.
Even although my camera's not working.
I think you can still share your screen without your camera working.
Okay.
Well, while she's getting that started, so this is the first of a number of meetings we want to have starting now and extending into 2025 to have a variety of our boards and commissions come to the Board of Selectmen and, for lack of a better description, reestablish dialogue with us. It'll give us a chance to hear from them about their work and their charter. It'll also give us a chance to ask questions of them and give them an opportunity to hear, hey, how are you? To hear from us about our perspectives as to the work that they're doing. And I thought this would just be a good way to get to know everybody a little bit better, share perspectives, and come to a collective point of view about the focus and mission of these various boards and commissions. So by way of background, the Advisory Committee on Sustainability is an advisory committee of the Board of Selectmen and has a one-year charter and has to be renewed every year. We met earlier and reappointed a number of folks to sustainability, including Kathy, the chairperson of that, which I appreciate her doing and her being here this evening. And we did it for them to extend it all the way through the end of 2025 so that we didn't have to go through that again today. So she's the first person to kind of join us as part of this review process. And Kathy, I really appreciate you and I've had a number of discussions about sustainability. It's certainly an important topic, and to have a chance for you to kind of present your desired game plan for 2025 and get the rest of my board's reaction, I think is fantastic. So thanks for your patience and for joining us this evening. We appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay. So why don't I turn the microphone over to you? Why don't you give us a couple minutes, give us a sense of what your mission is for the coming year and anything else you'd like to talk about, and we'll get reactions from my colleagues.
Okay. I, based on the letter, kind of put a look back with some things that I think are important to talk about what's going forward. I did it on PowerPoint. They're fast going through, and that you can ask me any questions. So I do have a PowerPoint here on my screen if there's a way to share it with you guys. Or I can
so
just...
there should be, if you move your mouse around at the bottom of your screen, if Jennifer's given you the ability to do that, there's a little green button that says share. Do you see that?
Yep.
Click on that. Click on the slide you want to share and then click that button.
Getting to the slide that I want to share. That is that. And share.
My goodness, you're a child of the 21st century, I can tell.
Oh, I am so not. But we try.
All right.
We
All
try.
right, so the last little thing to do is at the very bottom of your screen, that PowerPoint slide, there's a little screen button. Right over, click on that. There you go. Now you can run through your
Yeah.
slides.
Okay. So I guess before we even move on, the committee right now, just to introduce, I don't think anyone's on the call at this moment. I didn't see a name. The committee is made up of right now 5 members of what could be a 7-member committee. I've been on the committee since 2018, I believe, and our newest member is Lauren Rossi, who joined this year. The others have been for various points in time. And I thought, I'm not knowing who knows what about the committee because its name changed, is we were formerly the Energy and Recycling Committee. It goes back about 10 years, and its focus was initially really improving the recycling programs. People like Craig Flaherty, Carolyn Bain, there were a number of people on the committee who worked to assist with sort of the improvement of the recyclable materials at the transfer station, mattresses, electronics, things like that. They worked with the town to secure grant funding to take the trial swap shop and turn it into that permanent building. There were people with backgrounds that helped with some of the solar replacement strategies and data collection for financial justification and things like that. And we changed the name in 2019, working with Jamie, because we were trying to align with the newly formed Sustainable CT organization, which was establishing a certification process throughout the state for communities to demonstrate and then be recognized for their actions. I think looking at the value of this committee, every committee has strengths and probably all have weaknesses, but the spirit of volunteerism among this group of people, the ones that stayed for 10 years and the folks that are there now, are very passionate about the work involving sustainability, which is really a broad term for things that are energy, conservation, and in the sustainable CT model of a lot of variables that make a community livable. I'm not sure if you know the technical expertise of some of the members that have advanced degrees in sustainable planning and engineering, and work in the industry, and have many connections around the state through the work they do on their own. So I think those that are willing to give their time have a lot of background knowledge, not just an interest in a particular topic, that they kind of know what they're doing. We did not have a committee in 2024. In 2023, we focused most of our efforts on bolstering the food scrap program and reinforcing, improving the recycling practices at the transfer station. We were very involved through our own work as individuals in a committee of understanding the waste crisis that was beginning to happen in 2023 in the state of Connecticut, which then came to be as we looked at our own costs in our own community when it comes to waste management and our trash, our municipal waste. I actually presented to the Board of Selectmen about this topic, and we did talk to the RTM as well, and actually gave an educational seminar at the library on the waste management crisis in the state and how it was coming and what the solutions were to solve it, many of which solutions have not been implemented. And we did a lot of community outreach, which is part of what this committee does. We worked on the newsletter. We wrote articles for magazines, the Darien Magazine. We presented at the library. We do things at the Nature Center. And this is all work that's done on behalf of the town under the name of the advisory committee, giving members of the community an understanding of waste and challenges of waste, conservation. A couple of years prior, a lot of work on water conservation. And we go to green team meetings, which is all the groups around time. So you'll see that folks on this committee will go above and beyond just kind of coming together and meeting as a group once a month and reporting back to you. We do a lot of work really because we want people to engage in this topic and improve their own, their own habits and make the town a better place. We do a lot of networking with Sustainable CT, Sustainable Fairfield County, the Municipal Food Waste, Food Scrap Group, all across the state and the region. Again, lots of knowledge that we hope this board will be interested in hearing from on a regular basis as we learn what's happening around the state and ways that we might be able to implement and plan new ideas. In the past, we spent a considerable amount of time on the swap shop and really trying to make sure that what went into the swap shop went back out to humans, not into the garbage. But that program has been sort of separated out under a separate committee and is not part of the work of the committee at this point in time. There was, and I know John and I talked about this, there were things that were discussed in committee meetings based on questions that came to us that never turned into any action, but I can tell you that a considerable amount of research was done with DPW on EV infrastructure, the idea of what would it take to put a charging station in a Darien property. And working with Tony, there was quite a bit of work with infrastructure providers with the town of New Canaan to understand the costs and the options and how you would go about it. There's a lot of grant money right now to do the expensive work, which is to dig, to be able to have EV infrastructure or charging stations above ground. And there was a proposal that went to the town administrator. As far as I know, nothing was ever done with that. And again, it was just a proposal of work between one of our committee members and the DPW department. We also did a lot of research on what other communities have done with leaf blower ordinances. We did present that to the RTM, but again, there was no follow-up on that. So that's kind of our history. The two things that John and I discussed that were really missed in 2023, and then we didn't have a group in 2024, was the advancement of our goal as a passionate committee of family members and parents with kids in the schools and a long history in the community, that the public school department, which is not your bailiwick or your purview, has lots of room for improvement, both in saving money and improving the impact on the environment with our youngest members of the community. And many of our surrounding communities, Wilton, Greenwich, West Hartford, goes on and on, are working on pilot programs or fully rolled out programs to reduce food waste and improve recycling, neither of which are being implemented at this point in time. And there's also a long-term project relative to electric vehicle school buses, which is a mandate over a period of, I think, 10 years, where there's a lot of planning work going on. Most of the funding was initially at towns that were, I guess, I'm not coming up with the right word, but the larger cities or impoverished communities. But there's still lots of information and data in the state of Connecticut on what it's going to take when your contracts renew, when you should try an EV school bus. So we've wanted to have those dialogues with the school department. And in 2023, we weren't successful at really breaking through to anyone at the administration or the Board of Ed. And as John and I discussed, there was limited dialogue in 2024 with the town staff and officials, which whether it led to, we didn't have a direction, you didn't know what we were doing, things that we thought were great, there was no one to share with. And we as a group feel we've got a beat on best practices, not of all of which will work in Darien, but we feel like you would want to know what's happening when it comes to energy, recycling, EV infrastructure, strategy planning, things of that nature, and how you want to put those out over a period of years in our own town. And the work we've done with Sustainable CT has given us sort of access to funding, to seminars, to people that we really didn't take at all advantage of after we were certified. So the last thing is, I'm sure many of you know, but Darien is certified as a silver community under the Sustainable CT model. In October of 2022, we were able to document and report to the organization actions that gave us 535 points, which means nothing, but it was more than enough points to become the second level of certification. We were originally bronze in 2019, and in 2022, silver. There's a gold level and a climate expert level, neither of which we've reached. I cannot tell you how many hours that were put into this, but it's the documentation of activities that take place in the town of Darien that the town of Darien has some involvement in. It can't be me having a composting class in my yard as a sustainable activity, but if the town is funding a composting class or providing a place to do that, then that's an action that gets credit, things of that nature. We were certified for things like we were able to get Energy Star certification on a whole number of bills. We get lots of credit for our transfer station, the food recycling. We were a pilot program for many other communities that wanted to start collecting food. And then a number of things you wouldn't even think of, but some of the open space management, the historic preservation actions, the work we do with the farmers market, the library, where there's an involvement of the community. We got points for the work we did as a town, hiring a communications manager and the newsletters and what was in those. So sustainability is a broad topic. Hundreds and hundreds of hours, all done by volunteers with input from town, but basically by this committee. That certification ends in 2025. If we wish to renew it, we'll have to plan in 2025 when and if we're going to apply or where there'll be end of the effort. So that brings me really to where we're today. This is a icky sheet, but John and I and people on the committee looked at an overall mission, which is to broadly advise the board on best practices available in areas of waste reduction, energy efficiency, conservation, and creating a sustainable model. And for 2025, we think the number one thing is expanding the town's food scrap recycling program. Without giving the presentation that took an hour at the Darien Library, food is about a quarter of the waste in our municipal solid waste. And transposing that into numbers, extrapolating that into numbers, if we could take the food out of the solid waste, we would reduce our hauling costs and the cost of waste by a significant portion. But that would require getting the food, which is very, very heavy, and then it's very hard to burn when it gets to the incinerators, and it takes up a lot of space when it's trucked out of state, getting the food separated so it can be used for recycling and composting. So we have a volunteer program at the transfer station, but it isn't required. If you have private hauling, you don't get involved in that. Some people think we should have a second location for people to leave scraps. I, who work at a local business, think that the opportunity to engage businesses that have food in piloting programs, there are funds to do that, would be very, very useful to help move us on a way to a more common practice in the community. If we don't do it on our own, many communities around the country are requiring it. And those that have see huge reductions in their waste costs and a lot of reduction in sort of smelly, icky, rodenty problems. Another area that we want to work with the town on is really to maybe see where we can assist with planning and zoning or building codes going forward. What sustainable things might the town do? What would we do to plan if we're going to try hybrids or EVs? There are a lot of different areas that we think our experience would help you plan to do your jobs. It's not our job. And we will continue to do the public education work on events around Earth Day. And look forward to knowing what's important to you folks, which brings me to the end. What are the asks? I think being here tonight is the first one, establishing a dialogue between our committee and the Board of Selectmen and hopefully the Board of Education. In the past, we had a staff liaison. Is that a member of one of your departments? Is it the town manager? Things of that nature. Helping us identify where this passionate group will spend their time. We'll go out and research how you could expand for food scraps. We will talk to the schools. We will go in and pilot a program in an elementary school and teach them how to separate the food and their unused food and the way other schools are doing. We would ask on occasion that a staff member attend some of the very pertinent to us kinds of workshops on the things that we're working on that you're budgeting for next year or the year after that. And then discuss what, if anything, you choose or want to choose in terms of recertifying sustainable CT. Probably in the last is we're available and open to the idea of collaborating, whether it's with the coastal group or Great Island, on areas that some of us do a lot of research and have experience or contacts with people that are doing the kind of work that those groups are doing. So that's I talk fast. Hopefully that wasn't too long, but hopefully that would give you an idea of what Cliff on my committee has very interested in maintaining single stream recycling. Carolyn Bain, who left the committee, is a statewide expert on food scrap recycling, not just a Darien expert. And she will help us if we pursue trying to improve that program so that we have a flat line of how much food gets taken out of the system. And we'd really like to come up with benchmarks to improve that, double that, triple that, get it in the schools. And Mohan is an engineer with a degree from Yale in sustainability. So it does a lot of the technical work, can do a lot of the engineering and data stuff more than I can. But we're all here and we're ready to volunteer our time to help you do your jobs, which we all believe is to make Darien a good place to live.
Well, we really appreciate your taking the time to visit with us and providing that overview. In terms of a dialogue with the Board of Selectmen, one of the things I would say is that definitely reach out when you have either an ask or an update for the Board of Selectmen and get on our agenda in the future, and we can stay in touch about that. In terms of communication, frankly, I'm willing to serve in that capacity myself, personally, both in talking to you, which you and I can do regularly, as well as maybe participating in some of these events, especially if it lends itself to my being there, and just help raise visibility on this. As you and I discussed, I think the main thing to help us with is twofold. I think the composting is an important thing that can actually add a lot of value and that a lot of people don't know about. I've had a chance to discuss with some folks in Richfield about their program, super successful there and something that's made a difference. And then finally, just keeping us apprised on trends in other towns in Connecticut about sustainable measures, whether it's EV charging stations or electrifying various types of equipment, so that when it makes sense and it's clearly a success in other towns, we can think about trying to be a follower of those other towns, and getting an education from you or an update on our education from you on a periodic basis will help us do that. Let me see if any of my other board members have questions or input. You can
Kathy,
stop sharing the screen so we can see everybody, Kathy.
Oh, yeah, stop the share. Yep, there it is.
Perfect, thank you.
Hey, Kathy, I have an easy one. On the silver, when it expires, first of all, do the points just disappear and we have to start from scratch? So I'm guessing that the elements that we achieved in the past, that bar has probably been raised. Is that right?
Yes and no. I mean, you start over again. It's a 3-year certification. If you want to start again, you can apply for bronze, you could apply for silver, you could apply for gold. It sort of depends on how many points you can find or how many volunteers or staff members can write. It's like writing a grant proposal. I mean, we submitted about 70 actions that came up with those points. Some of the actions are ongoing and would count again.
Right.
Some things might be a one-time program. We did the mental health screening, got us some points a couple of years ago. So that would go away and you'd find something else in it, because you have to meet something in a health category. You meet something in conservation. You meet something in working with the business community. So there's some that will roll over or just extend, and you would start with your prior application and go from there. And that assumes that the people working on it are, some of us have done it before. If you start from scratch, that's a higher ramp. But you're not starting from zero, but you have to document the actions that require that give you points to get you to a level of certification. And all the things that are going on in the community now, everything from Great Island to other things that are happening may bring in points. If we expanded food scrap recycling, if the schools got involved, I mean, there are all kinds of new things that we haven't done or maybe happened in 24, 25 that weren't recorded before.
And my second question is, you mentioned town staff, and I know that the silver certification did use up a lot of town staff was very involved in it and spent a lot of time on it. So is there a particular department that you think lends itself to working with you on a regular basis? And
when it comes to the recycling, the energy, much of that is DPW for sure. But we did call on working with Parks and Rec, because the Buddies program, which allowed all children to have access to Darien programs, is considered something that makes you a sustainable community. We worked with Pam on that. We worked with Health and Human Services when it came to matters that had to do with mental health screening or other things. So the people who work on the application, if the town chooses to do that again, are going to cross different departments in terms of working with someone on food scraps and working with someone on EV charging. I mean, that was Tony, that's been Ed, that's been anybody that works in the Public Works Department, have been the people that much of our activity has been focused around.
okay.
Fantastic. Other questions? Sarah?
Kathy, first, I'd like to thank you. You guys have done a phenomenal job the past few years.
Thank you.
Mohan, I'd like to thank you also. Do you feel like you have, at this point, critical mass with enough committee members to move forward and take that next step?
Well, the committee can have 7. I did see that someone was being interviewed or recruited that would take our 5 to 6. We would really love to be a full committee of 7, because the expertise, Mohan's expertise, like I said, he's an engineer, he's a data guy, he's very, very happy to work on analytical matters. We have other members, Amanda Craig, who has children in the school, who was just we have to hold her back to get into the schools to get food scrap recycling in the cafeteria, and Carolyn is the food guru in the state of Connecticut. So yeah, we really need 7 people, but there's Mohan. We need 7 people, and that's partly to work as a group and come to consensus on different ideas that we all would talk about. But then we kind of go off on a project, and Mohan may not work on the Whole Foods food scrap demo day. He'll work on what is New Canaan doing to have an EV charger in their town hall parking lot, and so we divide and conquer when it comes to individual work. And then we come back together and share, and if we have to vote to make a recommendation, we would use the whole committee. So yeah, we'd like to be fully staffed.
Yeah, we are working on trying to get additional members of that. The 5 that we have now is the best I could do, and we needed to reconstitute and move forward. If we get others who are in a position to join and can go through the appropriate committees, we will do that. So, other questions for Kathy? Okay. Kathy, we really appreciate this. You and I should touch base either this week or next, kind of finalize that. I'd also like to get your committee meetings on my calendar so I can come if I'm available. And we did, I'll help you guys as much as I can.
Fabulous. And we did come up with a schedule when we met, but we met in special meeting and Mohan wasn't there, so we didn't submit the calendar in. So we can wrap that up.
Okay, when that comes together,
Very
we'll
soon.
get that done. But let's you and I touch base.
Yes,
really
absolutely. Would love to.
We thank you for coming this evening. Thank you so much.
Please reach out. And whenever you're even working with another committee and something rings a bell, reach out to us.
I will track you down.
if I may, say a couple of words, if you don't mind. So,
sure.
Thank you, John, and the team here. So, I know that last year when I joined, I had no idea what the committee does. So it's been sort of an education. Certainly, you all have been receptive of the ideas the committee does. I know that we are trying to recruit an environmental engineer when we figured that that person lives in Darien, and that's the one we are trying to really bring to the fold here. Certainly, you guys do a lot of great island stuff. She's an environmental engineer. She can be an asset to look at look at it from the sustainability angle and what else we do. But again, just thank you. I know that certainly the committee wants to do a lot of things. I was personally passionate about the EV stuff because we did not want to be left behind compared to the other towns. But there is also a matter of practicality and the priorities, which we totally understand. We will certainly continue to educate ourselves and bring the best of our ideas. And I truly know that you guys will support if there is going to be a valid reason for us to move the town forward. Again, thank you.
Well, thank you, Mohan. We look forward to your input on this committee. So Kathy, you and I will be in touch, but thanks to both
Great.
of you for coming this evening. This is important.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting
Thank
us.
Sure.
Thanks, Kath.
Okay. Just back to truncate my comments. Nothing super pressing to bring up in terms of my comments other than just to note publicly that one of my predecessors passed away last week, Bob Harrell, who was first selectman from 1997 to 2003. As I told the town hall staff in a message that I composed after I received word, he was the first person in town government that I got to know. And over the years, when I was on the Board of Finance and early on in this role, he provided me some good counsel and stuff I hadn't thought of. So he was a good friend to many and a great town citizen, but he was retired in Florida with his wife and passed away after a short illness. So rest in peace, if you will. So I will end my comments there, and let's go to board liaison reports. Marcy.
Sorry, no update other than the fact that the Mental Health Task Force is going to be doing another first aid training. I know John talked about that in his State of the Town. I believe that date is January 15th and 16th. I'll clarify it and make sure that that gets in the newsletter. But for anyone who has not taken that program yet, I highly encourage you. Allie offers it at Post 53. It's phenomenal. Anybody who's taken it feels that it's super insightful. So again, the town is offering that. And I suggest you guys, anybody join who hasn't done so yet. We'll get that in the newsletter so you can sign up.
Awesome. Thank you. Sarah?
The Henley Homes and Royal Building Committee will next meet on Wednesday evening this week. It's a virtual meeting again at 6 o'clock, and things are moving. There's no significant updates.
I saw some of the handiwork of the committee on the schools tour.
Oh, did you go on the tour? Yes.
Oh, I tell you
exciting.
what, those guys it's exciting. A little dry weather in the fall. We don't like droughts, but boy, it helped them move along. And
It certainly did.
the competence of the team, and Chris Price and Jill were there. It's just fantastic. So the town is well served by your committee.
They certainly are working incredibly hard, and we're
professionals.
very lucky. Yep,
Yeah.
it's a great team.
Super progress. Really very impressive.
Yep, it's fun to drive around and see it.
Yep. Monica.
For Great Island, the community engagement survey closed a week ago, yesterday actually, and we had a total of 1,573 responses, including 483 new responders. Reed Hildebrand will be presenting at our meeting on Wednesday, and we'll be giving an update on the process schedule. They'll be sharing feedback from this second community engagement workshop, and they'll also be doing some analysis of the survey. So next step will be developing a vision plan based on this input, and our next meeting is this Wednesday in 206 at 6 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
Light Review Board met on December 11th. Our next meeting is January 8th. We reviewed 8 properties. One is going to be removed, or going down to 7 because that property was sold and their fines were discharged. There's another property where we had an owner come in and discuss that there might be a contract for sale soon. So we'll keep our fingers crossed about that. maybe get us down to 6 properties. And when we meet on the 11th, we'll consider recommendations for foreclosure for this one.
Okay, thank you, Mike. We'll look forward to that discussion. Okay, Jennifer, anything from you from the town administrator side?
No.
Okay, thank you. Public comments.
Hi.
Cindy Torres. Go ahead. Thank you for coming.
Hi all. Thanks for letting me join your meeting. And thanks for the public comment. This is I sent this over to you. I'm just gonna read it. It's easier, and I know I have 3 minutes. So
Go.
my name's Cindy Torres. For anyone that doesn't know me, I recently joined the RTM. So I've been following the Westcog noise abatement study, and I recently read the Stanford Advocate article. The initial survey was done June through September of 2023, and the following was provided in this survey. 41% of respondents were from Darien. 66 noted strong negative impacts on the quality of life due to the railroad noise. 69% responded to always hearing the noise, and I can tell you about those sounds at 1:50 in the morning, personally. 50% ranked quality of life as a primary concern. 82 supported public use of funds. So the reason why I wanted to come on here and talk and is I often I hear the board and I hear the Board of Education talking about the importance of mental health. And I really wanted to make sure that this is also seen as something that's, affecting mental health. There's approximately 15 to 20% of Darien households that are severely impacted by the noise of the train, and then a larger percentage is moderately affected by the loud train horns at the Camp Ave and White Crossing. So I just wanted to also make sure that, we don't forget that while this project to, deal with the sound from the train, to deal with the noise, it's 19 million, but it's not 19 million for Darien. So I really wanted to make sure it was put out there. This is 1/3 of the cost, right? 6 million would be on Darien. And I think that sounds so much more attainable. So, it's a large number. We know it's a large number, but if we took that 6 million, we broke it down, it's 500,000 per year on a 20-year bond. I know the town has other capital needs. I know there's flood mitigation. I know that's important. I know that, that's something that's constantly talked about with the weather changes and stuff, but does that really, really represent 20% of the town? Does a Weed Beach capital for that project, is that really going to, that capital to pave that walkway, is it costing 2 million? Is that going to benefit 20% of the town like this would? And then I know that there was conversation about, could we possibly change the federal decibel regulation and get them maybe to make some concessions, but that just seems like a real long shot to me. I mean, there's so many issues in Washington, D.C. That's probably not going to be on their agenda, and they're probably not going to care what Connecticut thinks. We're not on their top priority list. So I just wanted to say that the comments that were made by the town officials, they sounded like they were shutting down this project, even though the final study was only released on November 18th in the Board of Selectmen meeting. And most people aren't following the Board of Selectmen meetings. So if you didn't follow that, if you didn't take a look at that, you didn't even know you guys were discussing it. And there was no public input in the town's public comments. So I just want to say that those who are affected by this noise, we should have something to say. We should be able to be in this discussion. I believe this discussion should continue in regards to our commitment, instead of, it being shut down and people continuing to suffer. So I just want to make sure that that's really open and out there, because I don't really feel like the public has, seen this survey, seen what came back from all the information they gathered, and we need to continue to have a really open and transparent conversation. So thank you so much for letting me speak.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, new business, discuss and take action to authorize the first selectman to enter into grant agreements with the State of Connecticut Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. Jennifer.
All right, this one is kind of a housekeeping item. We are required to do this in order to apply for and complete all the paperwork on state grants. And this is for an emergency management grant that we receive every year. It pays a portion, about $10,000 to $11,000 of the emergency manager's salary.
Okay, and we have an authorizing resolution on that I'll just quickly summarize. It just authorizes, it's the Board of Selectmen authorizing me as first selectman to execute and deliver any all documents related to these grants and to effect that through this office. So does anyone have any questions on this? Okay. Could I get a motion to approve the authorizing resolution of the Board of Selectmen for this purpose? Sarah moves. Mike seconds. All in favor? Okay. All right. Next item up for discussion. Discuss and take action on the appointment of a town administrator. So by way of review, Kate Bush, our longtime administrator, announced her departure from the town so that she could move on to Greenwich, and she left us in September of this year. We launched a process to see if we could find the absolute best candidate for the role of town administrator to succeed Kate Bush, and I'm confident and happy to announce we have found the absolute best candidate for that role. I would just remind everyone that this was a thorough process led by a professional search firm, something that we have not done in the past, but it gave us a chance to really see what talent was out there from different parts of the country. Quite a number of people applied. They had a tremendous amount of expertise and background. And I think in the end, we had nearly 20 applicants for the role and considered closely, I think 4 or 5 of them as part of our process. And out of all of that, despite all the expertise and horsepower that we had a chance to see, we came to a unanimous conclusion as a Board of Selectmen that the absolute best candidate for that job is our current Director of Finance and now new Town Administrator, Jennifer Charneski. So Jennifer, just from my end, I just wanted to thank you for your patience as we worked through that process. I know it was painful to kind of sit and let us work that through, but I think in the end, it helped us get to a great decision, not just for the Board of Selectmen, but really for everyone in Town Hall, as well as all the citizens of the town, to have someone of your talent, caliber, and dedication to take on this important assignment. So I'm beyond excited, actually, to have you in this capacity, and very happy. I will turn over to my colleagues for their comments.
I would just echo John's. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, I would echo John's comments. It's been a great pleasure and privilege to serve with you these last couple of years. And I really look forward to seeing you achieve and grow in your new role. And we have every confidence in you.
Thanks, Mike. Monica, you're next.
Jennifer, we are so excited and so appreciative of you wanting to stay with Darien and grow with Darien. We looked, as John said, at just a number of super qualified candidates, but your qualifications just frankly stood out, and we're really, really excited that you are stepping up to this. Thanks.
Sarah.
Jen, we're absolutely thrilled and we're so excited to keep working with you. Your reputation is phenomenal, bar none. Every single person who we've talked to and anyone I've ever talked to just absolutely loves working with you. And so we're thrilled that you're going to be in this role for us.
And Marcy.
Sure, certainly. Congratulations, Jen. I echo what all of my colleagues are saying about you, and I'm really excited to work with you more closely and more frequently, as you know, we only get to see you a couple of times a year, and now we'll see you twice a month. So excited to be part of our crew. So congratulations.
Thank you all very much.
Excellent. Well, I won't put her on the spot. I slotted her in for an hour-long speech to give to us, but I won't actually make her do that. No, I'm kidding. So I will sign her contract tomorrow, which we have all discussed separately, and her first official day will be tomorrow morning. So congratulations to Jennifer Charneski, Town Administrator for the Town of Darien.
That's great.
All right, and I would like to record an official vote. Could I get a motion to approve the appointment of Jen Charneski as the Town Administrator for the Town of Darien?
I'll
Monica
move.
moves, and Sarah seconds. All in favor? Aye. All right. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, discuss proposed guidance for off-cycle capital requests. Sarah, and I know we have Jack Davis on the line. Both of you have sorted through this and had a proposal for us to consider. Sarah, I will turn it over to you.
Well, thank you. I'm glad Jack is here and Jen has had a chance to look at it also and add to it. Hopeful that you have had an opportunity to look at the document. If not, I can go through. I think one of the main drivers for this is we do sometimes have folks come before us looking for large capital requests, and I would like to see some parameters around these requests. And I think it might be helpful for those that come forward from different departments. And I think it would be this in a beneficial process. Jack, if you'd like to add anything, please do. I just think, I think sometimes we've seen projects come forth and I wish they would have either been a part of the capital budget or, you know, it just brings up a lot of questions. So for me, I think the guidance would be particularly helpful going forward.
Jack?
I think the effects of what happens when the Board of Finance is planning the budget, not to know everything that's coming down the road, could better be explained by John, who served for many years there, or Jen, who also participated. But even from the RTM, it makes it very difficult to have these off-cycle items which were not discussed at the time of the budget or even raised at it. So when we put this together, we try to look at what are the circumstances that would require something to come off cycle, and try to make them maybe a little bit more stringent than they were. And hopefully, although this is a Board of Selectmen item, you know, the Board of Finance can also adopt this in the Board of Ed. So, you know, it was just a simple effort to just try and encapsulate what I've heard from the various boards and the RTM over the years.
So as you're
I'd
going
applaud-
through, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Sorry.
No,
No,
go
go ahead,
ahead.
John. Okay.
No, I applaud both of you for working on this. I think as a hygiene matter, it's important to take all of these projects and run them in parallel to our budget process for just the reasons that Jack said, right? It gives everybody a chance to think about them and get presentations on them and have updates on them and time to think about it before we actually put it to a vote, as opposed to something that's rushed or sort of outside the eye of the Board of Selectmen over a period of time, and frankly, the public, right? Because the public needs to have extended time to look at this as well. So I applaud this. I think the rationale that you've laid out for the circumstances where we would bring up something off cycle, I think makes good sense, with the provision that, of course, the town administrator can suggest something if we really need to have it. So it doesn't unduly bind us, but I think reminds us of good process, which is exactly what this is. So I applaud your work on all that. Thank you. Other comments,
Thank you.
questions?
I have a couple comments, John, or a couple of questions. So the 1 and 2, the immediate, do we need to button that up at all? Requiring immediate repair or immediate action? Just because this is, you know, like a standing document, that seems.
I'm not sure what change what edit or change is floating in your mind that
I guess maybe we give examples as we did below of what would be considered an immediate action needed for a change in law. You know, laws don't typically change immediately, right? So are we saying within 6 months or?
Do you mean
Well, I
as
think
far as a response to it?
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, okay, so for the first one, for the natural disaster or an event, I mean, if there's a building that has obviously some kind of catastrophe or a fire or a weather event, we need to be able to fix these roads or buildings or such. As far as laws, you know, changes come in, was it October 1st? I apologize, John, I don't have the date memorized when the new laws are put into place. So it could be that there's something that comes up, whether it's public safety, fencing, I don't know. I'm afraid of putting this out there without having, you know, the flexibility to accommodate that. But those things do come into play occasionally. It's not very often, but it does.
I think that I added the law part because, as I said, we're partly building it for the town, even though it was directed here. But it's always a good catch-all because you never know what laws or other things might come up that might require the town to have to respond to it. So it's just sort of a catch-all thing that allows should something come up. I really don't know too many things that we wouldn't have some awareness of based upon the fact of the last session in Hartford
Correct.
and then being effective October 1st. But it's sort of like just a patch thing that I've always put into anything that I'm doing that comes to a town or to even when I worked in banking for the same thing. You never know what new regulation comes up and you have to respond to it.
And
Okay.
usually those regulations have like implementation dates. I mean, it could be passed on October 1st or it has to be implemented by a certain time. We saw
Right.
a raft of regulations and rules come out of the COVID pandemic, and which all had their separate target dates. So, I mean, I'm not particularly troubled that there isn't a specific anything more specific. As you said, Jack, I think as a catch-all, I think that's fine.
Okay, and then again, on timing, the board members must receive notification at least 4 days in advance of a scheduled meeting. Should we have, going back to true emergencies, should we have some sort of exception for, an emergency exception provision or something there, just in case we
I think that
don't?
makes sense.
Yeah, I do too.
I could absolutely see that and it makes a lot of sense. Yep. If something happened over a weekend, we need to be able to address it that Monday if
Well,
we need to.
You know, there are two great examples, even though it doesn't really hit off on, but this whole wonderful job that the Public Works did on sewer, even though that's coming out of the sewer authority, is a perfect example of an emergency that comes up. The other one is Hanson Road.
But
So, and I don't care about the 4 days notice. I actually think that, you know, on emergencies, you do it. And then you worry about the authorizations sort of later. Since I do believe John and the first selectman has some authority to do certain things on an emergency basis. So,
Right.
without the authority of the board, but I may be
And
wrong.
I think the 4 days in terms of documentation, just as a courtesy to the board to give us a chance to study that. Typically I get just a heads up on those sorts of things in advance, but I want to make sure that you guys have that time to review something. So when we get to the board, you can ask thoughtful questions or get your questions logged before the board meeting so we can get them
Yes.
answered.
I think it's crucial.
great work, sir.
Yeah, this really is good.
And thanks.
I don't know
Jack,
that this
too.
needs a vote so much as that we should just log this and frankly include it with budget documentation and make it available to other folks who might propose capital projects before they come to this board. But mainly it probably just pertains to us, since any capital project that's going to be done off cycle has to come through us anyway. So I think this gives us a good grounding for telling people to wait and go through through the budget process if it in fact doesn't meet these standards.
Okay.
Hey,
I
John.
didn't know if it needed a vote because we do have guidance. Monica, what's up?
Yeah, I have one last question. In italics, you have the request is within 10% increase threshold to be discussed and approved by the Board of Selectmen. So where are you on that? Is that per event, or are we discussing the 10% right now?
Well, I think we should. I think if we're not going to be voting on this at a later date, and this is the last time that we'll be discussing this, I think we should have a number in there. think we want to kind of put a threshold in there. If it's $1 million project, we want to have, you know, do they only come forth if it's over $100,000 over? You know, how do you feel about these projects that come off? I mean, do you feel comfortable up to a certain percentage? I mean, these projects could be multi-million dollar projects. So I want to be clear on what it is that do we want to have a dollar threshold? Do we want to have a percentage? It depends.
I think that the 10% came up because when we were looking, if I recall, and I could be incorrect, but typically if there's a capital project that goes 10% over its approved amount, that was times when it was looked for additional funding if we had to add something to it. For some reason, 10% stayed in my mind. And so that's why we use that percentage as almost. Now, it could be under a certain dollar amount. You're not going to waste your time on, but
Right.
but it
So
was, so maybe it's 10% plus not more than on
Oops.
there.
But right, so approximate example of maybe what we'd have to deal with is and we're going to talk about this in a minute, as what's next on the Weed Beach project. So that project was part of a budget cycle. It had an initial cost estimate. The estimates came in 2x over what the original estimate was. We asked Park and Rec to go back and rework that and come back to us with a suggestion. We got to talk about what's next, but from our most recent episode on all this, they came back and said, our recommendation is you should proceed with the plan that we originally proposed, despite the cost. So we're going to go through a process now to say what's next on all that. But let's just say, for example, that was presented back to us at the original $2 million cost. How would that particular request coming, say now in December, after a process of rethinking it, that we've come back now with a project that's already been through a budget process, but has a different number attached to it. Would this be an exception and could be considered now? Or would you say, no, it's got to go through the budget process again for fiscal 26?
If you're asking me, it has to go through the budget process again, because it's a different project based upon the cost differential.
Nope, same project, different cost.
Yeah, because the
Okay.
cost is significantly different.
Okay.
And there has to be a rationale for it. I mean, sometimes you just get an estimate out. I mentioned what just happened in Gorham there was human error. Okay, that's not an issue. That's just a human error occurred, go move forward. But when the estimate is so different, it requires us to take a relook at the project to say, there's one thing if it's $1 million, now that it's $2 million, is it still in the same way of use of capital?
I think the differentiating factor here was the Board of Selectmen decided not to move forward because the cost ended up where it was. And I think in that case, if the Board of Selectmen says no, we want to reconsider it, then whatever comes out of that, whether it's the same or different, has to go through another budget cycle.
Yeah,
I would agree.
I would agree.
Okay. All right. Oh, and we can vote on this guidance if that's appropriate. Jennifer, you tell me if that's something we want to vote to have as part of our record for how we handle these things. I'd be okay with that.
I think it would be good to have a vote and
Okay.
indicate that the board is adopting this.
Could I have a motion with regard to the new guidance for off-cycle capital requests as presented?
I'll move.
Sarah will move that. Mike second. All in favor?
Can I just question? We're
I'm
going
sorry.
to,
Yeah,
we're going to
please.
add the edits, correct?
The increased threshold,
Right.
we're saying,
And something about an emergency provision on that 4-day?
yep, Monica's correct. We need to modify the request.
Okay, I'm sorry. So
So we would
to approve the
modify the
guidance.
first, yep, the emergent guidance does not need to come 4 days before. And that the threshold of the request of within 10%, we could leave it as 10% if you wanted to change that. We should make that change now.
Okay,
Jack-
any other edits?
Do you think it should be a 10% or a minimum dollar amount, or just stick with 10%?
Yeah, yes, I do believe, because you don't want to waste the board's time or other people's time, because there's certain things that the town administrator and the director of finance have authorities over in certain dollar amounts. But that I leave up to Jen and John to determine what they believe is best. And before I sign off, congratulations. I'd rely more on what John feels is appropriate than throwing a number out there, because I think his experience from Board of Finance and this is better than mine.
So it should be a percentage plus a minimum number.
Yeah, probably. What, John, do you agree with that? Or
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. I don't know what that minimum number is. I'd have to think about that. Tell you what, why don't we go through and do a cleaned up version of this? It's not urgent. There's nothing on our
Sure.
plate right now. Let's do a cleanup on a couple of things.
Sure.
Maybe Monica, Sarah, and I, Jack, we can tuck offline to just tick and tie this one more time because it's important. And then let's pick it up at our January meeting. There's no urgency on this, but they'll give us a chance to get it right.
That sounds
All right,
great.
why don't
Thank you
we-
all.
No, thank you, Sarah. Why don't we table that motion and we will add this for agenda review for our next meeting, or we'll just put on the agenda for the next meeting. All right, thank you.
also
both.
thank you, Sarah and Jen, for helping on this.
Yeah. Okay, old business update on Westcog noise abatement study. So I appreciate the public comments. Contrary to those comments, this project is not dead. I would point out that this is a very complicated problem. It's complicated because not just because of the cost, but actually the main issue that we're working on right now is the coordination among these three towns. And so we talk about Darien's commitment of $6 million or $7 million out of the total $19 to $20 million cost if we don't get the constant warning time waiver. The reality is this doesn't work unless all the towns contribute because of the length of the rail that has to be part of that quiet zone. That doesn't work. And so one of the ways that we could potentially get this to work is to get the constant warning time waiver and put that in place, which would get the cost of this project down by half, ostensibly, which maybe makes it possible for us to get funding from those other towns. But the other two towns have not expressed at this state an interest in participating or in funding this. So what I've done is sort of volunteered to the group to be a liaison or coordinator for that. I've been in touch with both towns, but I need to do some more work on that waiver to see if I can get some progress on that. We did have a letter from the Connecticut Department of Transportation that was in a response to the studies or to the study that was done that we need to follow up on. I think there may have been some miscommunication with those folks. So in response to that, we are working on a meeting with the commissioner of the Department of Transportation. It was actually his predecessor that recommended to Westcog that they do this study. And so the impetus or the initiative actually came from the Connecticut Department of Transportation to get this work done. So Tracy Mara, our state representative, is working right now to get that meeting. I personally am going to try to involve our state senators if they can either attend the meeting or assist us in this regard. But it's clear that a next step needs to be to get all of the Connecticut Department of Transportation folks on the same page, because they are not at this point. And really the best and only way I would argue to get that done is to have a sit down in person with the commissioner himself. So that is in progress. In terms of the letter brought up in public comment, that letter was to our federal representatives, so both senators and Representative Jim Himes. And the request from that was not actually trying to change rules and all. It was really just to see if we could get their help in making sure that the train noise right now, with no changes, is no louder than it needs to be, and that those train horns are not sounding for any longer than they need to be. And so that's merely getting their help in complying with existing regulations. They may be in compliance, we don't know, but that getting some support from our elected officials to press that was really what the impetus behind that letter was. Representative Marta sent that out. It was around election time. We've not heard from any three of those gentlemen. And so that's on my list for follow-up probably in the new year, once the holidays are over, to get that work. So there's two parallel tracks. One of them is on the proposals itself, and that next step is with the commissioner, and then separately to see if we can get the make sure the noise is not any worse than it has to be under our current circumstance. So this project is absolutely not dead. I'm on it. But I would ask everybody who's suffering with this noise to be patient. And this is one example in all caps that the wheels of government grind slowly. It's because we have a lot of players at the table. This is a very complicated problem that I've spent a lot of time on, and we're going to go as quickly as we can, but no more quickly than possible. So thank you for those comments. Next item, unless any questions on that. Okay. Next item up is to discuss and determine next steps on the Weed Beach project. So I brought that up in a paper-free way. When we last met and discussed that project, there was concern that it had not been presented thoroughly to the Board of Selectmen, or maybe we just needed an update on all of that. So given the previous discussion we had on guidance, we can certainly put it into the budget cycle this coming year, and it would be approved or denied as part of all that. And in any case, would not be anything that we could start on until probably the fall of 2025, given that timing. I think a question to this board would be, one, do you want to continue with that project or not? And if you do, what would you like to see next to facilitate making a decision on that going forward? As I said before, the Parks and Rec folks have recommended that we stick with the design that came in at $1.9 million when we looked at this before. That's their recommendation, but I'll open up the floor. What would you guys like to do?
Well, I may speak first, John. It's not so much for me for or against it. I would lean towards for it, but I think, as I said last time, it's difficult for me to consider it in a vacuum without all of our other projects and commitments that we may think that we have coming up into the cycle. I mean, we've had presentations from the Board of Finance at State of the Town, and I just, in terms of increasing obligations and debt, I just need to rethink my support for that project in conjunction with the other things that we think that are high priority, and I don't have that field in front of me yet.
So that's a very fair comment. At the top of my list for January, and I've already drafted this presentation with Jennifer, is I've got in mind a presentation that answers, I don't know, 8 or 9 questions pertaining to our debt situation, capital spending, ratings agencies, all of that stuff that I've laid out with her, and I need to collect the data on that. And my objective is that once you and everybody else hears that, and I'll either present it in this forum or I'll get on the agenda and present it to the RTM, but it'll be televised in any case. I think when we go through that, my objective is that you are crystal clear on all of these projects, everything looking out over the next 10 years, and what the exact impact on our debt situation is. I think if you see that, you'll see where this slots in, and hopefully, or my objective, I think you'll come away thinking that you're comfortable with something of this size. Where you get into concerns is the timing of really big future projects like the 50 to 75 million we might spend to upgrade Middlesex Middle School, which is within the 10-year time horizon. So, but that's a good point. I would say hold that thought or further kind of a decision on the Weed Beach project itself. Listen to my presentation on capital spending and debt, and then let's have that debate again. So that's what I'd recommend in your case. Other comments?
Totally agree. Think it's a great
Sarah?
idea.
Okay, Sarah?
I agree. I think given the
Okay.
amount, I think it makes sense. We're about to have these discussions in a matter of
Yep.
weeks.
All right, so let's say for a moment that I presented that capital and debt picture, and the conclusion amongst all of you is that this is okay, right? We could actually move forward. So if that were the case, what would you like to see to get reintroduced to the project? So that could be a combination of things. It could be a refreshed presentation from Weston and Sampson. One idea is a tour. So I've spent a fair bit of time traipsing around that property. I think it's actually eye-opening to go down and see the condition of the property currently, and what it would, and to be able to see kind of what it would look like if we did this work, which I think is very attractive. So depending on your interest, we will try to arrange that after the capital presentation if there's a general consensus that we should move forward. and we'll make that part of the budget process and run it through ringer again, if that works. Sarah?
John, I think that would be applicable to anything that we would have some in the budget process. If there's a particular project or a building or something that we'd also like to review it. Apologies for the dog.
No worries, your dog is not as loud as my dog, so that's just why I'm at the office. Yeah, field trips, presentations from the professionals, all that stuff, I'd open it up to Board of Finance, RTM members, anybody who wants to come and see all this stuff. It's the Weed Beach one, I think will be eye-opening, but we ought to consider some for Pear Tree Point. Come down and take a look at that, at least the boat ramp and the parking lot. The dredging's a little harder to see, but for example, you ought to hear from the folks at the boat club and the Norton Yacht Club about what they're saying about water depth and the importance of getting some of that work done. I think just hearing from constituents or users of these services will provide a fresh and new perspective. So for all of those projects where they lend themselves to that type of insight, for all of them, we're going to arrange that this as part of this budget cycle. So please make yourself available and bring your boots and hats.
Yeah, John, I like including the RTM and the Board of Finance. You know, if everybody looks at this at the same time, we'll be able to, I think, move on it. Whichever.
Okay. Marcia, you've been quiet. Any quick comments on any of this? Sound
No,
okay?
I just I also want to reiterate, I really think it's important that we hear from constituents because there's so many projects that we have ongoing. And I think, each town member has different ideas on what they want to prioritize. So as we start to get into the budget process and look at these capital projects, I would love to have people in our community kind of come out and say what their priorities are. I think that's really the most important thing.
Right. The only thing I wanted to follow up on the public comments point was that, it was about transparency and availability and all that. I take that very seriously, and I'll admit it's sometimes a struggle to figure out how to do that. I know all of us, particularly me, are out in public talking about this stuff all the time. And sometimes it's not spoon-fed, and it takes effort on the part of constituents to be apprised of when there are meetings. Cindy, one of the things I'm going to do is send you an email that's got some links and other things that even you haven't seen, but that is all publicly available for you to just further enhance your understanding of this project. But what I would say to just anybody who's watching or has a particular thing that they're wondering about, I can assure you that there are meetings or documents or videos on practically anything that you might have a concern about, but it's going to take a little bit of effort on your part to get connected with the resources or to find out where that particular thing is. So I would urge you to do that. Don't think that we're hiding things or it's just not available or nobody's talking or it's not transparent. That is fake news. There is a ton of stuff going on and every last bit of it is on television. You just got to dig it up and get it. I'd encourage you to do that. If you have tried and can't find it, call me. I will point you to where it needs to be. But if you call me and you haven't tried, I will be modestly less friendly, but still helpful. So please don't feel like we're not transparent. There's a ton of stuff out there and we will help you get that information. Okay. If nothing else on that, we've got a transfer, discuss and take action on a request to transfer $85,278 to full-time and part-time salary accounts. Jennifer.
This is a routine transfer. The bulk of it is for settlement of the town hall contract, which was approved by the RTM the end of September. And about 9,000 of it is for the Registrar of Voters annual salary increase that the Board of Selectmen approved in November. We don't, if salary increases are unknown, we don't budget for them. We put them aside in the salary contingency account. So that's where we're looking to move from. And after this is done, we'll still have about $51,000 in there. And the only unsettled contract at this time is for our 9 dispatchers.
Great. Questions for Jennifer? Okay, one thing she and I talked about was that on these kinds of transfers, there's always a budget line item for them, and inevitably there's a process we have to go through to get clarity on what the number is. And I asked her, I said, any types of these transfers that are outside of regular order or simply a settling up or truing up that simply comes later in the process, let us know if it's unusual, but otherwise if it's routine to tell us that as well to make that decision easy. So If no other questions, can I get a motion to approve the transfer request as presented? Sarah moves. Monica seconds. All in favor? Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so we have two reappointments. These are reappointments to the Town Pension Board. We interviewed two individuals this evening. Could I get a motion to reappoint Kelly Galvin to the Town Pension Board for a term expiring on June 30th, 2026? Marcy moves. Sarah seconds. All in favor? Great. And then could I get a motion to reappoint Tony Yetzi to the Town Pension Board for a term expiring on June 30th, 2027? Mike moves. Monica seconds. All in favor? And I just wanted to log my personal thanks to those two individuals. I knew them when I served as the Board of Finance rep to the Town and Police Pension Boards for 8 years. These are outstanding individuals who are true experts in this and tireless in their commitment. I'm just personally grateful. So thank you to you both. All right. Minutes. Review and approve minutes of the November 18th regular meeting. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes? Okay. Could I get a motion to approve those minutes from November 18th? Sarah moves. Marcy seconds. All in favor? Okay. Approved. Agenda review. We've got two items on there, a flooding update, which I promised to get out on video that I think explains exactly where we are on both those projects, which I will get out in January, and hopefully that will clear that up. But I want to make sure that if it's not clear, we'll get the professionals to come in and give you all an update. Beautification Commission on their garden improvement project. Jennifer and I met with them the other day, and they have pared that back to something that's manageable, both from an installation standpoint and a design standpoint, to facilitate easy maintenance. And they are coming back to us with an idea that I think gets that right. Ed Gentile was in that meeting as well, because he would have to orchestrate the maintenance. And he was in agreement with that general approach. So a revised approach is coming once I think we're all satisfied that that's good. That's another committee that we will have present to the Board of Selectmen, and they will include their proposal for sharpening up some of those outdoor spaces at that presentation. So that's where we are. Does anyone else have anything to add for agenda review? Monica.
John, it's not really agenda review, but I know that you had mentioned once before if the Board of Selectmen has any items they would like to have included for the budget to contact you.
Please. Absolutely. We discuss it now, or just reach out to me and let me know. I did talk to Jennifer today about just the Board of Selectmen budgets. We hope to have a summary of that end of next week, or by Monday of end of this week, or by Monday of next week. And we'll definitely circulate to that to this board as well, the minute we have it.
Okay.
Okay. And if you've got something you want added or anything like that, just give me a call or give Jennifer a call, and we'll definitely get that done.
John, the only other thing that on agenda review, I would have liked to get some updates on, because I'm getting asked some questions, is train station upgrades and what's happening with Norotan, and what's the plan if that's going forward, and how the Darien project is going.
I think I can address that now. So on the Darien project, so what you're looking at there, if you commute out of that station, it's platform replacement is the focus of that change, as well as fixing the elevators and kind of general exterior updates. So that project's been delayed by about 3 months, and it's because they've had to close and reopen tracks for other work that's up and down the line from the Darien train station. And as a result, it's added about 3 months to their efforts to get that finished. But right now, our current estimate is that the Darien train station platform and elevator work will be finished right at a year from now. So December of 2025 is what we're looking at. They had originally thought it would be done by September. So that's the update on that. The Norotan Heights station is on the list for the Department of Transportation to completely redo. And by that, I mean the building area that's down there in 2031 is what the current estimate for that is.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions or agenda review items?
John, on Norotan, that's to start in 2031?
Oh, yes, that would be to start. It wouldn't be finished that year.
Wow.
So that could be a year-long project or whatever. What my hope is, and this a little further down the road, so it's not quite on my immediate agenda at the moment, but to get a sense for how the town could have input into the design of that station. I do know that as a general matter, they're minimizing the idea of having concessions and services and all of that in these train stations and trying to get back to something that is more shelter oriented. But let's see what that process looks like. But that's pretty far out, so nothing to think about right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
All righty. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, could I get a motion to adjourn? Our next meetings, by the way, Board of Selectmen will meet Monday, January 6th, 2025, and then we will have joint department heads on Tuesday, January 22nd. And going with Sarah's good suggestion from before, we'll get the Board of Selectmen meeting to meet the prior evening so that we're not combining both regular board meeting and department head meetings in the morning. Okay. Could I get a motion to adjourn?
Hey, John.
Yes.
Hey, John, the 21st, the January department head. Oh, I see. Okay, so we're doing on Tuesday instead of Monday because Monday is the holiday. Okay, I see it.
Yeah. So, but what I need to, well, keep in mind Sarah's comment before that we separate the Board of Selectmen meeting from the department head meeting, and I need to go back and look at to get this set up. This is not quite right in here, but I'll get that fixed. We are going to split them.
Monica's right. The reason when we looked at the calendar, and it's actually Tuesday, January 21st, Monday, January 20th is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, so we couldn't have the Monday night meeting.
Right.
So we had it just for Tuesday.
Okay, so, okay. So okay, got it.
Yeah, the other thing is that we could either truncate that meeting, and if there are other agenda items, we have budget meetings interspersed around these dates here. So it's possible to call a special meeting and add topics if we need to cover them, since the board will be convening in any case. All right. Anything else? Okay, motion to adjourn. Okay, Mike moves, Marcy seconds, all in favor. We stand adjourned. 9:13.
Thanks,
Thank you.